Most people that are listening to this podcast are probably using AI at the level that 99% of the world is not. The future of AI is having a robot sit next to you, watching your screens, using your screens with you, and interacting with the employees and being an employee. The one thing they wanted was privacy. And then the second thing they wanted is consistent answers. And you can only get consistency when you have a product that is specifically built on intelligence that is layered in the company IP.
People feel like their software is being replaced. Their entire company is being replaced by a Claude product.
Every single thing online is resorting to the mean. Every single thing you do on ChatGPT is resorting to averages. You don't become successful being an average company. You become successful being remarkable.
JP Morgan, Shopify, Ramp, IKEA, what do all these companies have in common? They are building for the future. They are becoming AI native and they are getting ROI from AI. But how? We're actually going to walk you through that step by step today with companies we've helped become AI native who are on that journey right now that you've heard of. But most importantly, companies that you haven't heard of that are small, behind the scenes, doing a few $1,000,000 a year, 20 million, maybe even 100 million that are crushing it. So today, Andrew, I want you to walk us through this idea of moving away from rented AI to what you're now calling owned AI. What's that difference?
Yeah, we still don't have an official name industry wide, but I would say for the last, 4 years now, 2022, when we built Consumer Reports Project, that was the first time I think I started recognizing not just consistency, but really this concept of people wanting to stay away from the worldly knowledge and get really isolated on the company data and the company knowledge. And you were getting false positives. Everyone was getting false positives early on with ChatGPT. They would put their prompt in, then they'd put their documents in, then they put their PDF in, then they put their financial reports in, and they would say like, organize this and figure out and give me an answer. And it got good and we got good at prompting, but I also think 2026 is the year that I can confidently tell a CEO, you didn't miss out on anything. All the stuff that happened before now in Twitter world and in social media about AI coming into everyone's computers, all of that stuff is no longer necessary to learn or educate yourself on. The future of AI is having a robot sit next to you, watching your screens, using your screens with you, and interacting with the employees and being an employee. This whole world of like an agent building $1 billion company by itself, we're not going in that direction anymore. And 923 specifically hasn't been for 4 years, but we've been in this world for 10. So we never wanted to just send an open claw off and do its thing and hope that it would deterministically give us a result. We constantly wanted to control the answers. And so all of our clients that came to us and trusted us with their questions and building their own intelligence, the one thing they wanted was privacy. And then the second thing they wanted is consistent answers. And you can only get consistency when you have a product that is specifically built on intelligence that is layered in the company IP. And that changes things. That's no longer crawling the internet and getting a non-disclosure agreement and figuring out if that's like similar to the one you need to sign. Every single thing online is resorting to the mean. Every single thing you do on ChatGPT is resorting to averages. And you've seen the podcast with Sam Altman, when they ask him about synthetic data, he answers it very, very cautiously. Because if we keep injecting synthetic data because we don't have any more human data, what is the next pioneering aspect of these foundational models? And I don't know how much data there is, but how much company data do they need to buy to improve the model? If they've sucked up the public internet, they're now trying to pull off things like partnerships with McKinsey and Bain and all this. Why? Because that's private data organized in one company about hundreds of companies. And so if you want that, great. ChatGPT will steal all your data and you'll just be like everybody else. But I think the really smart CEOs are realizing that AI is a vacuum cleaner and their company is not going to be part of the average, of the means. They're going to be different. They're going to be controlled and they're going to do the things they've always been good at doing, which is the processes and procedures that made them famous. You don't become successful being an average company. You become successful being remarkable. And you can only be remarkable if you're doing something different than everybody else. And that difference is what the intelligence layer needs to be built for these companies, isolated from ChatGPT. So that's the direction we're finally all going. And it finally hit the news cycles after us shouting this from a rooftop for 4 years. And Consumer Reports was our first big one, but we've had Experian after that. We've worked with companies like an energy company up in Michigan. We worked with a healthcare company in Washington, D.C. that's doing a lot of great stuff for the senators and the government. So we're really starting to find our stride now, but it's not because of us. It's just the news cycles have finally realized that sending an agent off like OpenClaw is not going to work.
There's two companies I see making headlines the most. New ones like you mentioned, saying, "Hey, this guy and an agent built $1 billion company." That's
Yeah.
really cool for new companies. And then there's like the legacy, very very big ones. We talked about IKEA, Shopify, whatever it might be, relatively big, and they're talking about we're laying off 8,000 employees. We're laying off a bunch of staff. AI is making this big improvement. But something we serve and believe in is these small to medium sized business owners in the middle. And that's who you're really aiming to help. And part of what you're saying is, guys, don't pay attention to those two extremes. You have procedures. Let's build on top of that. So, what does it look like for someone to build on top of that? What do they need to be building that everyone else isn't?
Yeah, and I think your two examples are spot on because there's those two divergent aspects of companies. The Morgan Stanleys of the world have an incredible internal engineering team that has an entire department dedicated to research and development. And they've created, they call it the AI at Morgan Stanley, very creative and innovative, but they've rolled it out to 47,000 employees. And when you scale something of that size, the internal adoption of that has to be paramount. So you have to have project management and executive buy-in, and you have to create a blueprint and a rollout plan, and you have to have advisors and everyone else that's associated. Like that is a massive rollout that an agency could never pull off. That is also something that you shouldn't mimic as a $50 million company. It is almost impossible for you to do that level of engineering because you just don't have those engineers to build. Like their R&D department is probably bigger than most $100 million engineering teams. So first thing you created, you stated, is a startup. They have every ability in the world to fail. So of course, try OpenClaw. See if OpenClaw can answer all your emails for a day. That sounds fun. The real companies that are doing real things are in the middle. And in the middle, you are a $20 million company, been around for 15 years. You have data in SharePoint. You have data that is maybe in Dropbox, and you're accessing that through Slack or Teams. You have multiple departments, communication going back and forth between those departments, and you're working on a process of some form of sales, some form of inbound of money or product, and an output of what you're producing, your product. And that could be a software product, it could be a hardware product, it could be a process that you like, a consulting agency. But all of those things have inputs and outputs, and the department and the communication in the middle is broken. Because we've used SaaS softwares to improve our productivity, we've increased bottlenecks in certain places that didn't exist before the software. So now AI just comes in as an intelligence layer to like help you swim through the mess and just move stuff from sales to procurement. And that's it. That's the goal. That's all it does. And on the surface, if you can sell that, you have $1 million business.
There's an image I'm going to put here of where you showed those clusters of this is what it looks like. And for those who are just listening to audio, it's showing all the different softwares that each department uses and how there's a cluster of procedures and knowledge and communication that happens there. But then there's like gaps, because now when sales goes to product, there's all this information that would normally get lost. Now, talk to me about that new image. What's the new reality and how do people get there? You talked about SharePoint, the softwares. Can I just use Claude, ChatGPT? We have connectors. Like, is that what I'm doing? What do I do next?
Intelligence layers are not about injecting AI and hoping that it solves the problem or the workflow. I said at the beginning of this podcast that the world has changed and flipped, and prompting is no longer a necessary skill. And I truly mean that. Like all of the great VC backed people were touting that prompt engineering is where you should go as a college student and just become a prompt engineer. But we've learned very quickly as a society that just like Google, I don't know if you guys remember back in the day with Google, you used to have to type like, if I wanted to type in like Dave Matthews, I would have to type in like Dave and Matthews because I had to like join the keywords. That was like my prompt engineering for Google. But we realized it's much easier just to say, search Dave Matthews and get the answer, right? So that's happened in prompt engineering. It's gone away with the enterprise coming in so strong, and people are just needing to ask a question. Hey, what was my total invoice amount in Chicago last month? That used to take diving into Salesforce and QuickBooks and figuring out the financial invoices and organizing and sorting and getting an answer and maybe missing an invoice here or there. But now with that natural language question and the right data layer, you can get that answer pretty confidently and pretty accurately. And I think what people are realizing is that the large language model is not important. The harness is what the most important aspect of that large language model is how do you control the large language model? And The harness is what Morgan Stanley built. The harness is what Goose is at Square. It's the ability to control and manage and retrieve the answers in a way that the company wants it retrieved, not the way that the frontier model wants it retrieved. And so when you ask a question, how many invoices do I have in Chicago? You want that invoicing thing for your company to say, you don't have any new customers in Chicago, but 4 years ago, you had these customers in Chicago, and I found it in this antiquated database that you don't have access to. I'm sorry, but I
Mhm.
can't let you know. And that type of answer is the answer you want as a CEO. You don't want like, hey, here's the answer, and then hope that the thing's user permission, blocked, privacy controlled, accurate. Like, get rid of that. And so when you think of that world, and you think, okay, I'm asking questions, I'm getting answers. What ends up happening is you don't add agents to the computers. You add agents as an employee to the software. They take up seats, they take up room, they have a permission level, they have access control, they have everything that an employee has, and they sit on your computer next to you and they have access to the same things you have, or they have their own access to these software tools, and they do the things that humans spent forever doing in the past. And that's where we're at. And that's why owned intelligence is becoming so popular now, finally.
I want to walk through those layers now. You started hinting at it a little bit. Layer one, infrastructure, that data layer. And then you started
Mhm.
hinting at governance, which I didn't even know what that meant.
Mhm.
Walk me through those layers because I think a lot of people are starting with agents and workflows and
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you're like, guys, I want you to do that. Trust.
yeah.
But these are these other layers that we help structure and accelerate that adoption, but they can start taking those steps. What are those layers?
You know what the first layer is that I never would have thought this? Most people that are listening to this podcast are probably using AI at the level that 99% of the world is not. But when you work with an actual client that's in manufacturing or an industry specific client, our first step is AI governance. And AI constitution comes out of that governance. An AI constitution is like, what are you allowed to do with AI and what are you not allowed? Okay, HubSpot has this thing called Breeze. Should I use Breeze? No, because we use Claude at the company and we have these Claude skills that work specifically with HubSpot, and it already has user permissions baked in because we've integrated Claude with the correct user permissions. And we ask it questions there to create our dashboards. So if you need our dashboards for company X, they are located at this spot. And if you want to interact with those dashboards, you ask the question here. That's a constitution. You're creating a rule book of how the employees are going to behave with their new employees, AKA agents, that are doing work on their behalf. So if you added a new department, you don't all of a sudden just say, hey, department, go off and, figure this world out and then tell me the results. No, you already have a dress code and a procedure and a process that they have to follow and a way they communicate with the rest of your company. So governance and constitutions is that true first step. Hand in hand with that, I didn't know I was going to have to be doing this either, but sitting with executives and convincing them that they're all going to have to stop using random ChatGPTs that they use at home to paste all their company sensitive data into and start using the actual company systems. Everybody hates Copilot. Everybody doesn't want to use it. So the CEO thinks it's cool for him to go and send it off to ChatGPT. So it's up to the company to create a governance rule that allows anyone to have that same feeling, but use a company tool that gets similar results so they don't feel like they have to go outside the system. And then you have to check when they're outside the system. And then you have to monitor, are they actually copy paste? Like all those things start coming into place really quickly. But that's the first step, is creating governance, fluency, and an AI constitution.
Boring.
Yeah.
Snore.
Yeah.
Who wants to do
Yeah.
that? But then you
Yeah.
see
It
all these
costs money
articles
too. They
and
don't even want to pay for it.
yeah, and then you see these articles and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to get hacked. Oh, I don't want our
Yeah.
public information ending up in
Yeah.
the New York Times. Oh, I don't want our stock to crash because of
Yeah.
leaked code." And then you realize, "Oh, there's a reason IT departments were created, and that's
Yes.
a significant line item because it's necessary." So
It is
to
very
me,
necessary.
that journey you always talk about going from on-prem to cloud, it's like this transformation, and that's why we call it AI transformation. And it's sophisticated. That's why we call it the 5-year plan, and we'll put the PDF up here. It's a 5-year plan because it's a transformation, and if you do it right, you will have something that won't be replaced by a prompt next week
Mhm.
because Claude launched the thing. So now the last part, I kind of hinted at it there a little bit. I'm scared, man. I'm scared. So many people are doing layoffs. People feel like their software is being replaced. Their entire company is being replaced by a cloud product. But you are telling them that what we just walked through here, these layers, that if done right with the right partner, it'll compound over time. Andrew, people are talking in weeks. You're not saying months, you're saying years.
Mhm.
How is that even possible?
I mean, first is, what's the proof? Our first owned intelligence products were built in 2022. They were called out by Experian on the S3s when they do the quarterlies, that the product we built for them increased the revenue by 4% for that department. It works. it lasts. It's going to be part of the staple of their products for a very, very long time. Just like a CRM becomes a tool to help your sales team, this becomes a tool that just increasingly helps everybody at your company. I think it's similar to like the IT when we had like IT infrastructure companies coming in. We call them, what do we call them? Like IT consultants, or I have an IT service company that helps. Any 20, 30, $50 million company rented an IT service company to manage their Microsoft Office 365. And there was billions of articles written on how to manage your own Office 365. And as a software company ourselves, like we don't need an IT company to do it. We kind of do it ourselves because we're good with computers and we know how it works. But if you're a law firm or dentist or, a security office, like you don't have that skill in-house, and you don't want somebody at midnight giving a user permission to Bob because he needs access tomorrow morning. That's what the IT service companies found out, is like that we can help with that. Now at that same time, there was a transition to the cloud. And maybe the cloud was successful, maybe it failed. You can argue that. But the thing that became successful out of that movement is that I can work I can work at work from a computer from anywhere in the world. And so that transformation was a very powerful transformation that a lot of consultancies and service companies helped out with, because not every company has that skill. AI is the same exact thing. It is a transformation of your company to get on a new operating system with a new work, with different employees that you've had in the past. Like we never had software engineers 20 years ago, and now we do. We've never had agents 20 years ago, and now we do. And how do you work with an agent? How do you keep it alongside you? How do you manage it when it goes off the rails? How do you reprehend it, right? Like, how do you take the rules that are applied to employees and make it fair for the same agents that are trying to do the same type of work that the humans are? It doesn't replace. And that's the beautiful thing. It enhances and augments. I wish artificial intelligence was better known as augmented intelligence, because it is doing exactly that. It's augmenting the person that is giving the data to the agent to do the job. And at any time, they can say, here's different data, here's a different executable path, here's a different source that you should have given me. I mean, we all yell at our Claudes all day long, like, stop, like, go in the other direction. Like, this isn't the direction I wanted. We forget that we have control over these agents. And so now as a company, if a company looked down on their employees and said, hey, how many agents do each of you have? And then multiply that up back to the top, there could be thousands of agents that you're not calling employees. So how do you manage that? And I think what we have to realize is that the good companies are augmenting their employees and allowing them to automate the mundane, do tasks that are simple, and increasing revenue because of that. I don't think they're replacing employees at good run companies. I think the good process, the good CEOs, the good companies that have great procedures and have been around for a long time are starting to see this AI as a great augmentation for them to double their revenue with the same number of people.
Those companies in the middle, the
The companies in the
headlines,
middle.
the ones that never make the headlines.
Exactly.
I'm here in Stockholm, and I met an owner today doing extremely well. Never heard of the company, never heard of the, don't even know who they are. They're not famous, but it's those types of companies that actually have the most opportunity, and they employ most of the people in America.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's who we want to help. If this stood out to you and you're thinking, hey, I'm in one of those industries that is not software, we are not a software development company, or if we are, we don't have the capacity to accelerate this adoption, then I'm going to recommend you hit the first link in our description where you can actually get a free AI audit with Andrew Amen here. And then also, if you're like, hey, I might not be at that level yet, get that PDF, our owned intelligence PDF that walks you through the 5-year journey. This is handwritten by Andrew, help from our product managers and engineers. And we're going to give that to you guys for free. Andrew, thanks for an awesome episode. Appreciate you providing so much value.
Anytime. That was great. Thanks, Sean. And we'll see you next time, everyone.